So if the Browns do, in fact, sign some wide receivers, they're likely to look for help at edge rusher, defensive tackle early in the draft. Not necessarily the first round, but maybe. So let's take a look at a couple of prospects with the most to gain at the Combine. This again, according to Pro Football Focus. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt could put his stamp on the DT1 status by blowing away the field with his athletic testing at the Combine. When you look at the edge rusher, it's one of his teammates that they're going to talk about, Trayvon Walker. Walker is billed as a physical freak in the mold of someone like Rashawn Gary coming out of Michigan. And again, defensive line is 1A or 1B rather to the 1A of wide receiver areas that this team needs to upgrade. So keep your eye on the league year opens up in a couple of weeks in the middle of March. I think it's 16th. Listen out for who the Browns draft or who they sign. If they sign an edge rusher, probably going to go wide receiver early. If they sign a wide receiver, they're probably going to go edge rusher. Those are the kind of things to keep an eye on. But both of those guys from Georgia, I mean, they're really interesting, and I'm guessing that Joe Woods would love to have either one of them wearing an orange helmet come next year.
Certainly. I think, though, I actually, yes, I agree that obviously 1A and 1B are wide receiver and defensive line. But I will say that I believe that Andrew Berry's a wild card enough to where if there's a player that he feels is the best on the board, he's going to take him. If there's a guy at 13 that really helps their football team in some way, he's going to take it. Be that a linebacker, be that another corner, be that a quarterback, whatever they feel is the best player available at 13. So I think it probably will be a wide receiver or a defensive lineman, but I think that's something to think about. But you're right. I think there's a ton of opportunity. The Browns could take a defensive lineman at number 13 overall, given you're right. Say they sign a couple wide receivers, say they sign a couple defensive linemen, then you're going to see that the draft is probably going to reflect that. But I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, is what I would say, with anything that Andrew Berry does, because I think he is legitimately, when he says, like, we treat this like an expansion franchise, I legitimately think he means it.
Yeah, the other thing that I really like that he said out at the Combine, they're going to look to be aggressive and opportunistic, and that means when we see something we like, we're going after it. I'll put it in layman's terms. We're going to sit here, when we see something we like at the right price, we're going to go get it. And that's been consistent with what he's done in his first 2 years as the Browns general manager.
Yeah, and that doesn't always mean it's going to work, but I think that's a great way to operate your franchise. If I were a GM in the NFL, I'd be the most annoying GM there is. I'd be talking to everybody, calling everybody. I wouldn't be the one taking calls. I'd be the one calling, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'd be the most annoying guy on the phone. I'd be on the phone every day talking to say, hey, we're looking at how are you feeling about this person? How are you feeling about that person? I'd be on the phone with agents and all kinds of stuff. And sometimes opportunities fall in your lap, but sometimes you got to make opportunities. So I think that's what he means when he says they're opportunistic. I think the Browns do field calls. I think they do make calls. And, be that about the quarterback position, be that about the defensive line, whatever. I think that's what you got to be. So I think Andrew Berry I think they really do have a good approach. I think they're learning in free agency that maybe that's not, necessarily the spending the most money on the best guy doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to pan out for you. But I think they have been great in their approach in building this team. I really do. So, obviously the way they handle the quarterback situation will kind of define what they're viewed as a front office and as an organization. But I think otherwise, I think it's been really, really good.
And the other thing to keep in mind as we move forward, their stated goal is sustained success. So don't expect them to push everything into the middle of the table and go for it all in any one given year.